Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is almost upon us. Greetings gamers, FiOth here, and in this video I will be presenting a preview of the game with the content allowed by the developer and publisher, since we're all under NDA at this point still. I got a chance to play about 10 hours of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and I know that many of you out there have been waiting patiently for this game for the better part of a decade. So how does the new attempt of Warhorse Studio at a larger, more all-encompassing action RPG in a medieval setting fare in comparison to the original and the standards of the industry today? Full disclosure, I will be showing you gameplay from the first opening hours of the game up to a certain point, since we're not allowed to show anything beyond that, and I'm starting here with a trailer, so I will let you know that nothing will be spoiled. I will be just showcasing mostly mechanics and talking about them. You're gonna lose nothing out of your experience, since I'm adamant about my belief that me making a cooler video isn't a good trade-off for ruining your experience with the game. So without further ado, let's get to it. First order of business, performance. I was blown away by this, guys. Usually when AA to AAA projects like this first make their appearance, they're riddled with bugs, crashes, and the overall performance is dog shit. This game is running on CryEngine. Do you remember CryEngine? The engine that back in the day gave us Crysis, the most famous PC roaster of its time. It has been getting updates throughout all these years and is behind a lot of projects, but it all comes to a head with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. The game, when I first booted it up, suggested ultra settings on everything and DLSS on quality, and I was running it on a 3070 Ti coupled with a 12th gen GPU and 32 GB of RAM. Granted, I am not running everything on ultra. Doesn't make sense to lose like 15 frames to have slightly better shadows in any game, but the performance I was seeing here was majestic. You're seeing a clip from the very opening open world segments of the game. It's the first time you're allowed to just move around an open field and just observe the water and the trees and the grass, animals like you see the horses here and the characters, and it is a very fine looking game for the optimization we're getting. I can't really believe that these guys pulled this off on a pre-launch build, because let's face it, as it will be getting patches, it will be running even better, but right now only the press gets to play the game, and what we're playing is certainly a fine working title indeed. Voice acting and overall sound design across the board is also excellent, very convincing of the era kind of writing, and the soundscape including natural sounds and the banter going around in villages and settlements. It all works to the game's advantage, building the atmosphere. It's a very immersive game if you can bring yourself to the mindset required to play it. I'm gonna elaborate on this in a minute. Next up, I'm gonna open with the combat. The combat system in this game is quite unique and very interesting, following in the steps of the original game from the times of yore. What you're basically trying to do here is find an opening in your opponent's defenses by dictating the direction from which your own attacks will come. That is doubly important when the opponent is using a shield, because it provides more coverage, and you're managing a stamina bar as well as, of course, your health, your directional inputs, and your distance and positioning in relation to the enemy. It is all very daunting at first, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes very entertaining combination between a quick time event and an overall show of awareness and technical understanding of how its different mechanics work. If your enemy is over leveled and you feel weak about the encounter, you might want to play defensively, might want to execute parries or power attacks or use specific perks to your advantage, and sometimes you will be able to overcome adversaries that normally shouldn't, and it feels really well when you manage to do it, because the game works as intended. It's not for everyone. It's like a first-person Souls-like to an extent, with how you manage your resources, but not as challenging and of course not as fast-paced, because both Henry and the occasional opponent are ultimately just human beings. There's nothing supernatural in this game. It's a very grounded, a very historical experience. What's really good about the way they approach tutorials and explanations about the various things is the extensive breakdowns the game gives you via the codex. There is a codex that gets updated and it explains pretty much everything from how systems work to how society works in the game, with a little bit of commentary from the devs that gives it flavor and reminds you that, well, yeah, we're in a video game, but if you don't opt in for using the codex as much, your immersion will not suffer because of it. Earlier I spoke about the necessary state of mind to play this game, and that is because Kingdom Hearts Deliverance 2 is a game that handles its progression in ways that would be perceived as a total lack of quality of life in pretty much any other video game. Everything you do in this game you have to do by hand. On the background here you're seeing the very first tutorial for alchemy. You literally have to do everything yourself, one step at a time. Read the recipe, get the materials, grind them down, get the bases, move the alembic, wait for it to boil, and so on and so forth. What would normally be done in a menu in 99% of games out there, here you have to step into the kitchen and get Henry a sandwich. Pretty much literally. The same goes for equipment. You have to get the coif before you get the helmet. If it is a heavy helmet, you have to get the chain coif, or you can't equip a helmet at all. You have to get your pauldrons, and underneath you have to have some leather and all that stuff. And for someone who really wants to delve into the medieval historical quote-unquote fantasy here, not in a sense that it is magical or anything, but you know, as in power fantasy, this will be amazing to experience. For people who want to approach their games in a more streamlined way, this might be a detriment. So you should know what you're getting yourself into before you start playing the game. And I know that the old timers of the series, the veterans, know that the game doesn't pull any punches with its progression. But for newcomers, beware, this is definitely not a game for everyone. Now, let me break down my biggest gripe with the game, and honestly, my only gripe at the moment, since everything else, whether I like it or not, is working as intended, and it's pretty clear cut if you understand how you should go about it. I'm talking about the dialogue system. There is a perk tree, or rather a perk list that you can get, and Henry will be able to do various things. When it comes to dialogue, you increase specific traits in its character, like being more intimidating or more chivalrous, and he will be able to respond to either threats or suggestions from other characters in specific ways. The game early on tells you that it's not only about the stats, it's about who you are talking to and your relationship with them. But most of the times, what I have perceived is that you will ask a mundane question like, what is your name? And you will literally lose reputation with the NPC, because after asking their names, Henry will go about saying something, your mom blows donkeys behind the barn. That caught me completely unprepared. I was just having a stroll, opening up random dialogues with NPCs, and at some point I asked a girl her name in the opening act of the game, and because she thought I was intrusive in some way, I lost reputation with her. It made zero sense to me that that happened, and totally took me out of the experience. This is a game, by the way, where you have to use consumables or sleep or get a new quest in order to have a save. If you don't do any of these things, you won't be able to save your game, and when you mess up a dialogue, you might have to go back 5 or 10 minutes in order to reattempt it. I don't know if that was the intended effect or if it is a bug to lose reputation like that with NPCs, but I really think it's gonna rub some people the wrong way, as it did me, to be honest. To be honest and fair towards the game, I think we have something special in our hands here. They really went all in, making zero compromise when it comes to how they present their world. The writing and the obscenity you'll be listening to are very on point when it comes to the brashness of the people back in the day, and I think Warhorse really stayed adamant to their original creative vision in presenting a world as it would have been if we lived in it. It's a very slow, methodical and zen game, unless you are fighting of course, and I think that people who generally enjoy the time period will find it very interesting. I will be reviewing and covering the game once the embargo lifts. I will also attempt a couple of streams on it, so if you found this informative and enjoyable, please subscribe, like and hit the notification bell for more content on Kingdom Hunt Deliverance. Until next time, be well, stay frosty and always strive for perfection. Cheers!